I'm sure someday I'll find a consistent schedule where I can upload these videos regularly. But other than that, welcome to the next installment of How to Warframe, and today I'm going to be talking about Mesa. This is one of my personal Warframes, if not possibly the favorite, just because of the way she reacts to enemies. And I'll kind of go over what she does in a little bit. But as it stands right now, let's go ahead and look at what I got running on this. Figured I'd show the builds off first instead of having to throw it immediately in your face, like right after the whole thing's over. But right now, this is just my general build of what I use with Mesa on the regular. It's got some pretty decent damage, really crappy range, but that doesn't matter all that much because I'm just generally using it for her 4th ability. But if you really want to use her for her other abilities, I got this build right here. This is designed to be just basically her being able to use her 3 and her 2 to a much greater extent than the rest of it, and be able to crowd control and stun a bunch of enemies. And I'm going to use this for the majority of the entire thing, but afterwards I'll show you some cool stuff that you can do with Mesa. But right now, this is this. Let's go ahead and change off Tenora, because I just don't want to right now, and I'll put on where's my Lex? There it is. This is what I got running on my Lex. Keep in mind that her 4th ability actually does scale off of your primary mods. So I got this running on here, and you can use another stat mod here. Like, you don't have to have this. You can actually run something like Convulsion here, or you can run Pathogen rounds for Corrosion. But I prefer to have my Riven mod on there because it's pretty strong. But as it stands right now, I'll just show off what she can do, and then after that, I'll show you some really funny stuff that you can do. So, let's start off with what her abilities do. Her first one is called Ballistic Battery, and what this does is it charges up however much damage that you do to enemies, and then charges it up into a singular shot. So let's go ahead and show off what that looks like real quick. Let's scale these enemies down. I was just doing something really funny. I'll show it at the end of the video, what I was going to do. Let's go ahead and show off what I'm gonna show you guys. Ballistic Battery, what this will do is that it'll take whatever damage you deal. This also goes with Peacemakers alike, so you can just shoot an enemy, and you'll notice at the bottom I just gained 8% for killing that one guy. We'll kill a bunch more dudes, and this will charge up however much damage, and then when it hits 100, it's capped out. After that, you can recast to fire the shot into a more powerful concentrated shot, which is actually kind of hilarious because it does do a lot of damage. Now, if this, I honestly think, is their most weak ability, because it's kind of useless, and if it didn't have a cap, like you could constantly keep charging it, I could see people using this way more, and it'd be a lot more fun to see. And I think I could see a lot of funny things happen with it. Her next ability is called Shooting Gallery, and what this will do is it'll be a radial stun, depending on how big your range is, and you can stun enemies in that area, and it'll jam their guns. But since these enemies don't have guns, they just get blinded instead. It doesn't behave like a radial blind from Excalibur, but what it'll do is it'll stun them in place to where, you know, they're not chasing after me, and they actually can't really do anything about it. And since this has got pretty decent range on it, you can see these enemies that are like all the way over here are actually getting stunned because of it. And this is a pretty constant stun, and it's a really good crowd control at the same time being able to like keep enemies lined up, hence the name Shooting Gallery. So there's that. Next we also have, oh, and I should have also mentioned that this also does give you a damage buff for your weapons up to however much your power strength is, and so it scales off of that. And her next ability also scales off her power strength, and let's remove the buff on this. And her next ability is called Shatter Shield, and what this does is kind of hilarious. This will reflect bullets off of you and then bounce them back toward enemies, and it also gives you 95% damage reduction on ballistic-based weaponry. You can see that I'm also deflecting it straight back at him. You can see I can just sit here and ignore this for a good while, making her almost tankier than some of the tank type Warframes in this game, which is kind of a laugh. This also does scale with power strength ever so slightly though. You don't need too much, but you do need a little bit at least to be able to get up to 95% damage reduction. And then at that point, you can just slug them down. So enemies really can't touch you. So she's got crowd control and defense on her side, which is pretty fucking strong as is. And I haven't even got to her last ability yet. Oh, and I'll also demonstrate something else that she can do with her ballistic shatter shield. Or, yeah, that's what it's called, yeah. Bombard rockets bounce off. Divided. No, when I don't have my shatter shield on. The bombard rockets bounce off. For some reason, these are visually not actually helping, but it'll bounce back to messenger. Kind of similar to Chroma's ice elemental ward. There we go. You can actually see it that time. It's kind of similar in that sense, and provided that enemy was pretty low level, but you can actually do this to anyone at any level, and it's a 95% damage reduction, making her pretty fucking tanky. I'll have to work on another build that actually revolves around her actually being able to eat damage instead of just ignoring it. Or, yeah, something along those lines. And her fourth ability is her peacemakers, and these are hilariously strong. Like, they're too strong. They're fun as fuck. So these scale off of what your pistol mods are, and Rivens count. So, considering that you can put multi-shot on here and be able to just douse enemies and raining fire and gunshots and all sorts of other fun things, you can really put the hurt on a lot of enemies at once. Those enemies are all dead. And I didn't have to really, like, aim at all. That entire radius that you see around the edges of the screen, actually, it shrinks as time keeps going. I'll show one more time. We'll do it right this time. You kind of see it shrinking as it goes on. If you also hold down... Oh, actually, they fixed that. Interesting. Used to be able to hold down her attribute ability and should actually be able to walk around. Can't do that anymore. But as you can see, it shrinks over time the longer you fire, which is focusing, and so that means that you're going to need to recast it to refresh the circle. Otherwise, it'll just keep going downward, which you don't want, especially when there's groups of enemies coming at you. So, she's kind of the emphasis on not wanting to stay still, even though it kind of locks her in place, which is a huge downfall of hers. But it's pretty weird. And this can go up to crazy levels like here. Let's put on level 145, except this time, let's put on some heavy gunners instead of this bullshit. Let's spawn 8 of these fuckers. Simulate. And we'll use all of her abilities at once this time, instead of just one. Oh, okay. Probably should have casted Shatter Shield first. Go ahead and do that right now, actually. Do all the abilities first, and then start up the round. Okay. You see, I can really douse these enemies, and like I mentioned before, this focuses, and the more it focuses, the faster it fires. Provided I'm not geared up. I don't have corrosive damage on right now, but I could just hold this down all day, and it's an energy drain ability. I'm firing 3 bullets at once, and so this can keep going forever, provided I'm not killing them like I said before, because I'm not running corrosive damage, but let's fix that. Go ahead and put on pathogen rounds, and then let's show off what that can do. I don't even have to be up there, fuck it. I can just rinse these enemies. You might be thinking to yourself, this is actually kind of slow. And you'd actually be right. I can speed this up even more if I wanted to. Because this isn't actually modded correctly. I'll show you what happens when I do mod this correctly. And those enemies are pretty much dead without me taking too much damage. And again, you might be thinking to yourself, this isn't too much, this isn't enough damage. But, funny thing is that you can actually speed up the rate of which you fire, hence modding capabilities. And I'll go ahead and show it off on my dual toxicists, and you're probably wondering, why am I running on the dual toxicists? I'll go into that even further. So, on my dual toxicists, I'm running all this. I'm running lethal torrent, which is increased rate fire, which I was on my other one, and this I have multi-shot and fire rate. So I'm up to about 3-4 bullets a shot, almost 5, with like a 20-something% chance, I think, at 5 extra shots. I'm not sure exactly, but I guaranteed up to 4 bullets per trigger pull. So, and you can hold down the trigger, by the way. You don't have to hold, like, you don't have to keep tapping the trigger in order to do damage. So, increased rate of fire, and let's see how that looks. You can kind of tell that it's starting to damage these enemies a little bit faster. With their crowd control, they really can't do anything. That was a little bit faster, but we can get even weirder. Because the dual toxis actually has a passive ability of where if it hits an enemy in the head, it will actually start up a buff for the weapon, which will increase its status chance, toxin damage output, and also be able to shoot faster with unlimited ammo, provided we already have unlimited ammo. But this carries over to your peacemakers, which can get really stupid. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Pop one of them in the head. You can already tell that it's fast. It keeps going when you hold down the other trigger. You can hear that it stopped, but I can re-up it. And those enemies are dead. And this doesn't mean that she just has to use her fourth ability all the time. If you don't like her fourth ability, you can definitely have a lot of fun doing stuff like, here, let's tone down these enemies to like 100 or something. You can really just run around all you want and just use your primary weapon or your secondary weapon freely. Just douse enemies, shotgun and stuff. Notice that these enemies are becoming non-threats, like as soon as they come into the radius of my second ability. They just sit there all day. Which is hilarious to me. And it continues again and again and again. So that gets even funnier. And you can speed this up even faster if you put on arcanes. I'm running arcane precision right now because I prefer the damage, but you can get even stupider with the different arcanes. So yeah, that's Mesa in a nutshell. Let's go ahead and show off what I was going to show you. What was I going to do? Yeah, that's right. Okay, I'm going to use my general build. And we'll go ahead and energy up in here. Crank this up to level 145. And then let's see what happens when I spawn a Juggernaut in. So you can't actually headshot this Juggernaut, because reason. But you can headshot the enemies he spawns. Because when he does this ability right here, he spawns a patch and then spawns some enemies along with it. And you can actually, oh, oops, you can actually hit this little enemy right here and douse this Juggernaut with a hail of lead. And it's quite a fun thing to do. He's dead. Yeah, that's Mesa, and that's what she can do. We'll go ahead and show off what she can actually do against a whole bunch of level 80 enemies. We'll go ahead and organize them together. Your standard test. Crank them down to 80. Which, if I could do that to like level 145 enemies, then I should be, like, this should just be trivial, right? Like, I shouldn't even have to fucking do this right now. And also, I should mention that Shatter Shield actually cannot deflect melee attacks. So if you get hit with a melee, it will not have 95% damage resistance on it. combat attack at all. So enemies like Butchers are actually pretty dangerous to Mesa. Melee enemies are definitely the central focus, but you can really just know a lot of them anyways because you'll seriously just rinse them. It doesn't even matter. Is that all of them? Yeah, that's all of them. Well, that's Mesa and what she can do. She's quite the hefty killer here, and it's kind of funny to me. But without further ado, hopefully I'll see you soon, if not next time, if not sometime ever. And we'll go ahead and show off the builds one more time. This is just my general build. You can screenshot that if you want. This is my other build, useful for buffing you and your teammates. Core Heck. You can replace that Heck Riven with a stat mod of your choice, preferably Contagious Spread, but honestly, I'm not gonna do that. You could probably tell why. And my Toxicist build, you can replace the Riven mod with Gunslinger, because it's Gunslinger actually gives a 72% fire rate buff, while my Riven mod gives an 89, which isn't significant, but I also got multi-shot on top of that. You'll pretty much have the exact same results as I will. But yeah, that's Mesa and what she can do. Again, I hope that maybe I'll be a little bit more consistent with my uploads, and I'll see you next time.